said, what do you mean we have to pay? And it says, we have money. And she was, no, you have to pay now. You got to pay $40.
Tonight, an Alberta chief says an Edmonton restaurant forced him and his friends to pay in advance before they even sat down.
We are in the midst of a meth crisis. Full stop on that.
The Winnipeg police say drugs and crime have gotten worse in the city, and they're not going to get better anytime soon.
That's something that I'm passionate about, is sort of motivating and inspiring other women.
And from the principal's office to the bookstore, we tell you about one woman who is making a difference for her students and now her readers. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Today, the Winnipeg Police Service released its statistics for 2018. They show a city grappling with a crime problem. The police chief says this is related to the rise of meth use over the past 2 years. And now it's not only affecting the community, but officers as well. Here's Brittany Hobson with more.
We are in the midst of a meth crisis. Full stop on that.
These are words Winnipeg Police Chief Danny Smythe has repeatedly been saying for the past year. Now, statistics from 2018 are showing just how bad the problem is.
Property crime has risen by a startling 19%. And with the exception of arson, I think every category that we track has gone up significantly.
Smythe says meth is the driving force behind the rise in crime. According to the report, police received approximately 619,000 calls requesting assistance last year. Smythe says all service providers are affected.
The status quo is putting tremendous strain on police and paramedic and, frankly, our hospital emergency departments.
He is calling on the province to create meth-specific detox shelters.
I think many people are familiar with Martha Street for, that's a detox center, but it's designed for alcohol. It's not designed for drugs like meth. But we need some kind of facility like that so that people that are in distress or need care can be transitioned from police or from paramedics to other care providers.
When questioned about the need for more treatment options, Justice Minister Cliff Cullen says the province has added 34 beds for people seeking help for addictions and mental health.
There's certainly treatment available. Certainly look at the capacity, and that may be the issue. We'll certainly work with Manitoba Health in terms of addressing any capacity issues.
Mayor Brian Bowman says this isn't enough.
Until there are robust and serious investments from other levels of government responsible for health, we're going to be having similar conversations.
In 2018, there were 22 homicides in Winnipeg. Halfway through this year, the toll is at 25. Smythe worries if things don't change, next year will be worse. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Additional medical teams are headed to Attawapiskat this week to evaluate children and adults with health concerns. The announcement follows a visit on Sunday to the First Nation in Northern Ontario by Indigenous Services Minister Séamus O'Regan. Attawapiskat recently declared a state of emergency over its water supply. O'Regan says there will also be a complete flushing of the water system to get chemical levels under control. In the longer term, O'Regan promised a new water treatment center. The Attawapiskat First Nation in Northern Ontario also declared a state of emergency last week. Meanwhile, O'Regan is in Cat Lake First Nation today to honor a previous commitment to tour that community. Cat Lake declared a state of emergency earlier this year due to a housing crisis. The Assembly of First Nations is holding its annual General Assembly this week in Fredericton, New Brunswick. This will be the last assembly before the upcoming federal election. And while the election will be on the minds of some, other issues will also be discussed. Officially, the meeting starts tomorrow, but here's APTN's Amber Bernard with a rundown on what to expect.
Thank you. We're here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, where Assembly of First Nation Chiefs are holding its annual General Assembly until Thursday. Now, there are a few important agenda topics to keep in mind. Tomorrow, Minister Bennett will be here attending the AFN AGA, which happens on the same day the Child Welfare Act and the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Bill will be discussed by AFN chiefs. Now, on Wednesday, we look ahead into the federal election. The original schedule had Prime Minister Justin Trudeau lined up for a speech, along with Conservative leader Andrew Scheer. Now, the last time Scheer attended one of these meetings, he didn't offer much, and it looks like he's giving up on the opportunity to give us clues as to what his Indigenous agenda will be going into the election. So that leaves Green Party leader Elizabeth May as the only party leader currently set to give a speech on Wednesday. And Seamus O'Regan, who's the Indigenous Services Minister, is set to attend, and he'll give us hopefully a little bit more insight as to what his plan for Attawapiskat is. Attawapiskat is currently under a state of emergency due to concerns of chemicals in the water. So APTN will be here all week to cover that for you. Amber Bernard, APTN National News, Fredericton.
To Saskatchewan, where the federal government has announced that they will be righting a wrong that was committed against Métis students that went to one residential school. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has that story.
At Back to Batoche Days in Saskatchewan, northeast of Saskatoon, the federal government issued an official apology to Métis people who attended the Isle Cross boarding school but were left out of the Indian residential school settlement. The federal ministers in attendance, Seamus O'Regan, Minister of Indigenous Services, and Carolyn Bennett, Minister of Crown, Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, signed an MOU with the Métis leadership, including President Glenn McCollum of the Saskatchewan Métis Nation.
Today we get to take a new step, and today we will sign a Memorandum of Understanding for the Isle Cross exploratory discussions to address the history of the Métis students who attended the Isle Cross mission boarding school.
This MOU represents the beginning of recognizing the Métis students who were left out of the Indian residential school settlement.
Start discussions with the ultimate goal of finally bringing closure to the survivors who were left out of the Indian residential school settlement. This is going to be an historic day in that respect, and it's only fitting and fair that Métis survivors be treated equitably with other Indigenous peoples.
Legal counsel Thomas Isaac says the province of Saskatchewan can still jump on board.
There is room in the core governance agreement for the province to come to the table. And it is in the province's best interest, it is in the best interest of all Saskatchewan that we engage fully with the Métis Nation Saskatchewan.
As of now, the province is not a part of the historic resolution, but that may change. The Isle Cross School was run by the province of Saskatchewan, not the federal government. That's why it was not officially recognized as an Indian residential school or was part of the Indian residential school settlement. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Batoche.
And we'd like to hear what you have to say. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news. Papachaise First Nation Chief Calvin Bruno says he and two friends were discriminated against at a Chinese restaurant in downtown Edmonton. He spoke to APTN's Chris Stewart about his unpleasant experience.
Chief Calvin Bruno and his two friends walked into this restaurant, 97 Hot Pot, on Friday. Instead of being allowed to sit down, Bruno says they were confronted as they walked inside.
The waitress stops us at the door and basically says before we sit down, we have to pay. And we're surprised by that. They said, "What do you mean we have to pay?" And it says, "We have money." And she was, "No, you have to pay now. You got to pay $40.
Chief Bruno says his friend suggested they leave, but he decided they should stay. They walked to a table.
I looked down, there's a saucer in front of me with a napkin on it. And that saucer, or that there was a bug on the napkin. And I looked at that and I thought, no, we're out of here. We're not going to eat here.
He posted about his experience on Facebook. He says he plans to file a human rights complaint about the discrimination. He also says he plans to file a report to the Alberta Health Services about the bug. He says this is the first time he has been discriminated against, but knows many others who it has happened to in shopping centers and food courts.
And I know a lot of our people do like, Chinese food and we love this stuff. But it's just that, when you get treated like that, you start to think, well, no, I don't think I'm not going to go back anymore. So I doubt they'll get any of my business at all.
No one from 97 Hot Pot has responded to APTN's request for a comment as of airtime. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
And we've just heard from the owner of that restaurant. He has apologized for the incident, but says there are a lot of homeless people in the area, and they've had instances of dining and dashing. So his staff asked some people to pay ahead of time. He did not say why they believe Chief Bruno and his friends would not pay. A popular and historical site in Sault Ste. Marie that people used to walk around has been getting vandalized. So 3 local police agencies are teaming up to patrol it more often. CTV's Jairus Patterson has that story.
Whitefish Island is a historical site dating back 2,000 years ago. In the late 1990s, it was given back to Batchewana First Nation. Since then, the First Nation has invested in the island, adding walking trails, fishing stations, and even huts for the public to use. But recently, people have been abusing the island.
Obviously, some vandalism has become an issue. Graffiti, damaging railings, handrails, things on the boardwalk, things like that. So it become evident that it needs to be patrolled more often by law enforcement.
As a solution, the Batchewana Police Service, Sault Ste. Marie Police Service, and Ontario Provincial Police are now teaming up to monitor the area more frequently.
The importance of the island to everyone involved, not only the Sioux Whites, Batchewana people, anyone in the tourism that's been here. We want to make sure that the traditions of this island continue and remain the same.
It's a place where people like to frequent. They walk down by the water, like to fish. It's a good place to bring families. So that's why it's important. We want to make sure people can enjoy the nice weather that we do get, and they're able to enjoy such a beautiful, scenery as we have here. We're lucky to have on Whitefish.
This isn't the first time the 3 police agencies have teamed up, but it is one of the first public proactive efforts for a focused patrol initiative in the region. Jairus Patterson, CTV News, Whitefish Island.
A new funding agreement will see more than 1,000 First Nations students in Alberta receive additional resources. Details on that after the break. Tuesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Showers and 21 for Halifax, 25 with rain in Fredericton. Rain in Nain with a high of 9, sunny and 22 for Happy Valley Goose Bay. 26 under the sun in Montreal, showers and 19 for Val d'Or. 25 in London under sunny skies, 26 in Toronto and Ottawa. 22 for Wawa, 26 and showers for Thunder Bay. Sunny and 29 for Puckatawagan, 30 for the Paw and God's Lake. 30 under sunny skies for Winnipeg and Gimli, 1 degree cooler in Brandon. 31 in Estevan, Regina, Swift Current, Saskatoon, and North Battleford. 31 in Stony Rapids, 30 for Uranium City. Welcome back. A high school principal in northwest British Columbia who has been inspiring her students has now become an author and publisher. And as APTN's Lee Wilson tells us, her goal now is to encourage Indigenous women to become entrepreneurs.
Leona Prince is a school principal in the Chaco Lakes District, located in central British Columbia. Her dedication won her Inspire Award in 2018, which recognized her contributions as an educator. Prince believes that school isn't just about learning, but also growing.
One thing that we can do in education is to increase that sense of self, that sense of connectedness, not only to other people but to themselves.
To keep with that sense of connectedness, Leona wanted to reach out beyond the classroom. So she and her sister Gabrielle started a brand new publishing company called Fireweed Canada.
Because our company is 100% Aboriginal owned, operated, and we're female. And that's something that I'm passionate about, is sort of motivating and inspiring other women and sort of...
The first book that Fireweed will publish will also be Leona's first. A children's book titled A Dance Through the Seasons follows a young woman's growth and culture in the world.
Most of all were huckleberries. She closed her eyes as she chewed the sweet berries. She wanted the memory of that taste to last her until next year.
Leona got her inspiration to start Fireweed and write a book all the way back in elementary school from her great-aunt Catherine, who was also her teacher.
She told me all of our traditional Dakheth stories. She was our culture and language teacher from when I was in kindergarten to grade 4.
The artwork and Dance Through the Seasons is by Carla Joseph of Prince George.
Well, I've known Leona for years, so we became great friends, and she really loves my art style, so I thought it was a perfect match for the book. I just want to have something that my kids can have after, even like when I'm gone or if I stop painting, something that will help them in the future, because all my kids are artists too.
Now that Dance Through the Seasons has been released, Leona wants to start publishing other women authors.
Having us tell our own stories will be a great way to shift the narrative of what people actually believe about Aboriginal people.
They stress the importance of reminding people women are incredibly important in Aboriginal society.
It's interesting that it is Indigenous women who've led this project and are leading our company, because we do come from a matriarchal society.
Leona's dream became reality when she had her first book signing and met her new readers for the first time. Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Prince George.
1,200 children in northern Alberta will be getting more resources for their education. That's because the Keenos-Kenow Tribal Council signed a 10-year financial agreement with the federal government. The council represents 6 schools from 5 nations. Funding will rise from $17,000 annually spent per student to $24,000 per student. There's also funding to increase salaries for teachers. The head of the Tribal Council says the new money will keep good teachers in-house, attract new teachers, and help keep students in school.
We know we've got the funding to pay for those existing positions at provincial levels rather than the 20 or 30% less that we were forced into in the past. I think the specialists that we can now hire and some additional teachers, we're probably going to increase our teaching component by a number like 15% over the next couple of years.
A Yukon program is preparing youth for work with nonprofits. That story is coming up. Here's the rest of Tuesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 32 under sunny skies for Fort McMurray. 37 is the high for Medicine Hat. 34 in Lethbridge. 24 in Victoria and Campbell River. 31 under sunny skies for Kamloops. 26 in Fort Nelson, showers, and 25 for Prince George. 26 and rain in Old Crow, rain, and 20 for Whitehorse. 26 with showers for Trout Lake and Fort Liard. Sunny skies and 27 in Yellowknife. Smoky with a high of 3 for Sax Harbor. 27 under sunny skies for Fort McPherson. 16 and showers in Whale Cove and Chesterfield. 10 with rain for Repulse Bay. 4 with a chance of snow in Resolute. Welcome back. Youth in the Yukon are getting job training and career opportunities through an organization in Whitehorse called Youth on Board. Not just any jobs. The mission behind the program is to provide experiences with nonprofit organizations. APTN's Chris McIntyre has more.
It's mine now. My hat.
Kayla Smith-Clark is 18 years old and part of the Tlingit and Kwanlin Dun First Nations, and she's doing something she loves, working with children.
The only reason I got this job was because of Youth on Board. I think it can be really helpful for other people as well.
Before she joined Youth on Board, Kayla applied to work at the Nile Nidaside daycare, but was told she needed more experience in the field.
I applied to work here a while ago, and then I was told because I wasn't in the correct program at college that I would need to go through Youth on Board to be able to work here. And so that's how I was introduced to Youth on Board, and I went down and I applied and I got in, and then I started working here almost a month ago.
Since the program started 2 years ago, 56 youth have connected with Volunteer Banvalet Yukon. Criteria for eligibility is simple. You must be a Canadian resident, you must be between the age of 18 and 30, and you must be legally able to work in the territory. Funded by the Government of Canada, the program offers a 20-week job placement with possibility of extension if the placement goes well.
It's a good stepping stone to give the youth experience. If they're interested in it, if they like it, then they can continue on and go into college, get their qualifications, and we help them with that.
Ifra Ali is the executive director of the daycare and sees the impacts for the youth, but also the businesses involved.
It's important for us because it gives us connections to community resources that otherwise I would have not known of. This program not only helps the youth, but it helps us, the organization, too.
Once Kayla's 20-week term is up, she wants to take some time off and go back to school. Kayla says the time in the program and the experience she is getting from the daycare may influence her direction.
I'm planning on doing more visual arts program, but being here made me more interested in childcare as well. So I'm also thinking about childcare, like a childcare program.
Chris McIntyre, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Finally this evening, every year, the Confederation Center of the Arts in Charlottetown, PEI, puts on a free outdoor show featuring young performers from all over the country. This year's show is named Asani, Inuktitut for the Northern Lights. And the show features 3 Indigenous youth as part of their musical look at Canada's hidden history. So as we leave you this evening, enjoy the young players singing a song well known to Nunavummiut, Northern Lights by Iqaluit's own Jerry Cans. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.